Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. We are accounts bookkeeping business based in QLD, Australia. Please find disclaimer on screen. If this is your first visit on our channel, we would like to inform you that this video is a part of the video series explaining GST Act Australia 1999. Please feel free to explore all other videos on our channel in relation to this subject. Today we will explain Part 6 to 2 of Chapter 6 of Volume 2 of A New System, Goods and Service Tax, Act 1999. Friends, Part 6 to 2 of Volume 2 of GST Act deals with meaning of some important concepts in relation to GST. In this video, we will discuss Division 184 of Part 6 to 2 of Chapter 6. We will see what is meaning of entity for GST purposes. We will discuss this section in following pattern. Explanation of GST Act. Explaining in our own words. Summary. Review. What we learned. And a question and answer exercise for you based on this section GST Act. Please read on screen or pause video to read what GST says about this matter. You can also read this information in GST Act Volume 2 pages 156 to 158. Please find link in description box below. First part, explain meaning of entity. Second part explains that trustee is entity for GST purposes. Part 3 tells about different legal capacities of a legal person for GST purposes. Part 4 explains about when a provision refers to entity of particular type. And last section explains about GST activities by partnership and unincorporated structures and their liabilities. Now we will explain this whole section in our own words. Firstly, for GST purposes, entity means an individual, a body corporate, a corporate sole, a body politic, a partnership, any unincorporated association or body of persons, trustee, or trustees. For GST purposes, non-profit sub-entities are treated as entities, and government entities can be treated as entities. All these legal structures are entities for GST purposes. The term entity used in number of different, but related sense. For example, entity covers all kinds of legal persons, groups of legal persons, and any other things that in practice treated as having separate identity. A non-entity joint venture is not an entity for GST purposes. An example of non-entity joint venture is when two different companies work together for one project. Both companies have share in project, but this does not make joint venture a separate entity for GST purposes. In other words, both companies will have separate share of GST activities. Because right or obligation cannot be imposed on an entity that is not a legal person, such as trust or super funds. In such cases, trustee or group of trustees are considered as entity for GST activities. For example, if trustee or group of trustees are replaced from their positions as trustee, the next trustee will be entity for GST purposes. So basically, this structure does not change with change of person in trustee position if fund for trust exists in business. A legal person can have different legal capacities at the same time in which person does things. In each of those capacities, person is to taken as different entity. For example, a person may be sole trustee of one or more trusts, so in this case, he or she is different entity for each of those trusts for GST purposes. If in GST provision refers to a specific entity in GST Act, so that provision is to take as referring just to that specific entity, not to any other type of entity. For example, a provision refers to company, it means just for company, not for trust or any other entity. GST activities performed by partnerships and unincorporated bodies are to be taken as GST activities made by partnerships and unincorporated bodies, not by their individual partners or members. Sections 444-5 and 30 of Taxation Administration Act explains more about this matter. Please find Tax Act information about Partnerships Act information related to this subject about tax liabilities of partnerships and unincorporated entities on screen. We have also attached a link in description box for Tax Administration Act. Please find on screen definition of unincorporated association. In summary, friends, a person, body corporate, a corporation sole, a body politic, partnership, unincorporated associations, and trustee or trustees of trust and superfund in Australia. Non-entity joint venture is not an entity for GST purposes. A legal person is different entity in each of different legal capacity for GST purposes. Partnerships and unincorporated entity structures are liable to pay GST, not their individual members or partners. Now we will have a look what we learned from entity section of GST Act is. Meaning of entity for GST purposes. Not to get confused by the meaning of unincorporated associations, example charities, and non-entity joint ventures, example one project by two companies. Please find question-answer activities on screen for entity section. 1. What is not included in entity section as entity for GST purposes? 2. Name 3 legal structures considered as entities for GST purposes. 3. Why trustee and trustees of superfund and trust are considered as entity for GST purposes. 4. What does this mean? A legal person can have different legal capacities. 5. Can government entities be treated as entities for GST purposes? 6. Does members or partners of partnerships and unincorporated bodies liable to pay GST? Friends, answering these questions from GST Act will increase your understanding of this subject. You can use this video to answer these questions or go to page 156 to 158 of Volume 2 of GST Act. Please contact us if you require answers or a free digital copy of these questions. Thanks for watching. For more on GST Act 1999, please check out playlist on our channel or subscribe to get instant updates. We would appreciate your feedback.